Welcome back, everybody. For some strange reason, you decided to rejoin us for episode 2 of the Good Old Boys. I go by Mark,
Bog beef.
and today we're going to talk about the squad. You know who I'm talking about?
I'm familiar.
If you're lucky enough to not know what this means, it's Ilhan Omar, Representative Ilhan Omar, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and then 2 other people that nobody really cares about. And first up is Ayanna Pressley, and she's a little bit boring and mainstream compared to the other 3. When she ran for office, she just admitted that she would vote the same way as the incumbent, but you should vote for her because the demographics of the district have changed.
She got that MAGA kid smirk down though. I like that.
Then we have Rashida Tlaib immediately coming into office and demanding that we impeach the president.
She said some wild shit on Twitter.
Then we have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I know everyone's heard of her.
I read the comic book.
AOC came out of the bullpen with some high heat, kind of positioned under Bernard's wing. She seemed to a lot of people like she had some promise. At first, I thought she might do something useful for a change.
Yeah, just stop there, dude. You were thinking about her shaking her thing out there up on the roof is what you were thinking about. You text me that video. So you can't trust thoughts. You just can't do it. And then like a week or 2 later, she's in that interview, and then the whole, she's just been Emma Goldman up until this point. We're gonna fucking private property is over. We're gonna dismantle the war machine, and then she gets that. They're like, "Whoa, what you think about IP, Israel and Palestine? They got a misunderstanding over there." Boom, boom! Just like in an instant, she just became DC embodied, and it was immediately like, "Whoops, this is actually." Everyone's forgotten that this is politics, and this is a politician. And
I mean, you've seen her boyfriend from the documentary, right? Like,
yeah,
we all had a shot.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can only imagine you were there in the DSA meeting, seeing old girl walk in with that thing out back. And
all right. Well, her father was an architect. I think she grew up in like Westchester.
No, you can. I mean, believe her. I mean, she says she's hood, and you can tell she's got a little ratchet in her, dude.
The warning signs were there for everybody to see. But anyway, that's not even the point. The interesting thing about her is that she doesn't necessarily have the biography to back it up, but she really uses the language. For example, you remember a couple months back, she said that border enforcement was wrong because Latinos are descendants of natives and this is native land.
Yeah, she was talking about like turning New Mexico into like an Indian casino or something like this. Like we're just gonna like go look back in the Encyclopedia Britannica to figure out who it belonged to, but it was some wild shit.
Of course, she doesn't believe any of this; it's just rhetoric. But still, she's made more inflammatory comments than the other 3 members of the squad.
Although I mean, for someone with a loose cannon, it's been I don't know how many months, and she hasn't settled on a horse in the Democratic primary. Still making up her mind. There's Biden's out there, Warren's out there. There's some fella from Vermont. I wonder if she's heard of him. He's got a great platform, but
people were trying to read the tea leaves, but hasn't she all but come out and said she considers Bernard and Elizabeth Warren to be 1A and 1B,
which is the basic scam the Democrats are running for this primary. That's the whole scam. It's basically they're the same thing. You guys, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you listen to other podcasts where they're going to tell you that in much more detail, but we all know what that fucking scam is.
Yeah, listen to What's Left if you care about that. What I want to talk about regarding her was there's the famous picture of her crying at the fence at the ICE facility. She's got the doe eyes and she'll make the sad little girl face. Up until pretty recently, that was the sort of thing that female politicians would consciously avoid doing.
Dude, I mean, it's something else. Aside from Margaret Thatcher, I mean, obviously she was bawling her eyes out all the time. But
yeah, I mean, like Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, They're not to be trifled with. They didn't present themselves this way. I mean, John Boehner cried more than Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, a few more of the his moans than the her moans going on there. This is one of these things that, like, we part of you thinks it might be good, but it's only like in some kind of like sick accelerationist way. That's like the bureaucrats. These ritual figures that are supposed to be designing the government and stuff. That there's this decorum and things like that. That's all gone. At the end of the day, all that really matters is 51% versus 49%, and so they're not really a leader. I mean, they're not really leaders. All their bills and stuff. They're handed to them from corporate executives.
They're all crooks.
Yeah, they're all fucking crooks.
But granted, okay, we're going to say politics are bullshit. It's all nonsense. But you can see something from the branding. Like you can see what the branding might be the only thing that you can take at face value. This is what they think will work, and with her, what she thinks will work, and perhaps she's correct, is acting like she's going to quote you, hug every kitten.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is the policy. This is it's just deeply unrealistic. You never see this radical empathy stuff, which is, I mean, it's a joke if you're talking about statecraft here. This is just, you're never going to see radical empathy combined with skin in the game. It just doesn't exist.
Explain what you mean by that.
Basically, if it's coming out of your pocket, then you never see radical empathy. If it's sending go look at where progressives send their kids to school.
She had her Green New Deal, like in the original draft. It says something about taking care of people who chose not to work.
Yeah.
What was the Soviet Union's position on people who chose not to work?
Yeah, exactly. She obviously reads like she's sort of like a id pol avatar for single women. I don't really get racial politics from her at all. Maybe that's crazy of me.
Well, she'll throw out some stuff about that, but yeah, I totally agree. I think that she's gender id pol more than
we got a lot of friends that's in her district, and I mean you can find this out from other ways, but I mean one thing you hear a lot about people in that district is like the dating scene sucks for like mid-30s women and stuff, because they're the gender balance. It's like a party at Sarah Lawrence College. It's kind of the vibe there among I don't mean in general, I mean people who are sort of politically active.
All right, well, so what do people who still like AOC, what do they think and feel when they see her crying on television or crying in a photo?
Man, it's complicated because first of all, I mean, if we're really getting down to brass tacks, I mean, when things are on issues like abortion and immigration, everyone is kind of locked in and they'll do anything for a W. And so this is kind of the thing where I guess it started in the Obama thing, where Republicans would basically just start treating Obama like a piece of shit, even when he was doing like parade functions and stuff like that. That seemed kind of like a new thing here, at least. Obviously, I know in the United Kingdom and stuff, they just treat all their politicians like shit,
which is great. We should steal that.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I care for that, because I certainly don't think it has any material benefit. It just feels good.
No, of course not. But it's funny.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, it would be hilarious to see someone like pretty much any American politician. It'd be fun to see them on Question Time.
I wonder who do you think could hold their own if they had to answer like prime minister questions?
All the fucking goons like Karl Rove and stuff that beam the thoughts and the brains of the plastic people we see on TV. But so I do want to stew on this point a little bit, because first of all, if you ever see right wingers talk about AOC and stuff, you get the impression that when she says like radical shit about like race and like transgender stuff, like they do buy it. When you're on the left, when you see her do it, you're like, she didn't really know that. She didn't really know the dance steps to that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Whenever she'll toss out something about like transgender stuff or race stuff, it does seem like she's off the beat a little bit. You're like, oh, okay, she's just sort of throwing her hand up,
Yeah,
uh,
talking points.
looking like she belongs, but this is not really your go. This is not really your point man for this. But on the other hand, you know, I'm pretty sure I don't watch Fox News, but I think like every time she mentions Three Spirit, that's good for like 4 or 5 weeks of the Hannity factor.
Yeah, which is part of the point. This is the scam, right? I'm what I'm getting at here. What I want to know is you're watching your like. Let's throw out the politics part.
Always happy to do that.
Put yourself in the position of border of AOC.
Sure.
You see her crying at a photo op or during a speech. Now, for me, when I see a leader crying, I don't like it. It's unseemly. It makes me think, wow, this person has power.
Who's flying the plane?
Yeah, exactly. You don't want the airline pilot to be sobbing when you're going to board the plane.
You don't understand my experiences.
Do you think that secretly do they hate this, or do you think that this is like normal to them?
I don't know, man. This whole thing seems like it's this sort of dynamic is
You can have your culture war shit, you can have your arguments about economic policy, but this is really something that's very basic building blocks of how people think about things. And a legislator weeping. Well, put it this way, was it Ed Muskie who did that in like 72 when he was running for president? The New York Times called him a little bitch baby and his career was over.
Yeah.
And then somebody said something like somebody was talking shit about his wife too. It wasn't like he just started crying because he was sad about what was happening in Hungary.
Man, this whole thing, like, I'm liable to get fucking canceled if I go off on this because we have friends that are involved in politics stuff. We're not. We're just two assholes. If you do know people like this, you got friends that are, they're 98-pound girls or whatever, and they get the same treatment from 250-pound males they're born with a silver spoon in their mouth because it's not really. It's all bullshit. The way the people that can get away with this are the people with power. This is all this fucking inversion of power, and it's I don't know.
All right, are you saying that this is like the way to hack somebody's brain? You can have a person's elected leader, and they can just start crying if they're, like you said, 98-pound woman, and get away with it because you have this inborn sympathy.
If we just made it so if you're a 98-pound woman and you cried that we couldn't respond to that would probably be better. I mean, that would be shit, obviously, because then everyone's just going to drag one out. But I'm saying that even that is totally.
This is now a Red Pill podcast.
Even that is totally contingent on who you are. If you're not in the club, you can't get away with this.
Basically, you're saying don't worry about this because this is just her. You're not going to see that Lee Carter from Virginia guy start crying. Well, I mean, he kind of does on Twitter though.
Yeah, you know because he's a fucking progressive. That's what I'm saying. I'm wording this weird. What I'm saying is all this crying and shit, it doesn't really have to do with being a woman or being vulnerable or worried about vulnerable population. This is how power speaks the truth now.
But that's kind of terrifying, right? Now there's a way that you could, if you're a powerful person.
Power doesn't, people say like, power like begets power. Only thing power wants more. Well, what another thing power wants is to hide itself. You see that a lot here. It's like you can be like a U.S. senator or something like that. You turn on the waterworks, and now it's like any response to this, you're like are you threatening me?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
You're hurting a vulnerable person by having
I'm being
debate.
wounded here. Yeah. I'm sitting here, and there's just big soggy tears falling down on this
words of violence.
Yeah, this is all political technology, and the best thing you can do is just stop believing in this shit.
Well, okay. Yeah, you might not believe in sharks, but if you, you go out swimming on the beach, you still get eaten by one if it
Yeah,
shows up.
absolutely. I mean, well, think about this. I mean, I'm saying that right now. It sounds great when I'm saying that right now. Have you ever had a woman cry around you?
I'm not on trial here.
I mean, I
This
mean,
interview is over.
you ever I don't know, maybe seeing a girl, whatever, and
Yes, yeah, that shit works, obviously.
she wants something. She wants something. We're not talking about she wants peace in the Middle East.
That's an instant win for any argument.
Well, what's it feel like? There's deep chords in the male brain that sort of we
Yes. Okay.
fucking stop crying now. We can't help it.
Well, it sets off instinct. Well, okay, but so again, this is like an inversion of a relationship with leaders and followers. The leader's not supposed to be crying and being comforted by the follower. That's
Of
not.
course not.
So what? So where do we go from here? Because this seems like you're setting up a situation where you have perverse incentives to behave this way as a leader, and people aren't going to. Can you imagine respecting a leader who started crying like that?
Well, no, of course not. They don't care. I mean, this is leaders, politicians, these fucking scumbags in Washington. They don't give a fuck. They will
Well,
do all they're caring about is that next election coming in 2 years, and they'll set fire to this whole country for
right.
the slightest
Okay.
gain.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I get that. I understand. But the way the system works, we have to at least give it some amount of legitimacy, right?
this is a certain technology that's rapidly accelerating. You're seeing this, everything that progressives can do, where they can just start shoving more chips in the middle, to where like there's no way to have any sort of conversation about any progressive policy without being a monster. Anything they can do like that, they're just doubling down, and so they're just going to make it so there's going to be consequences from this. You can't just keep doing this forever.
Some degree of legitimacy has to matter, right?
Of course.
Once it's exhausted and things are really getting bad, people will not accept that kind of behavior anymore.
You know what I fear? The people who really dig into this. By the way, this even further goes to that 90-pound woman thing. One of the biggest artists of this fucking that Swalwell guy. He's fucking yoked, Aryan looking male here, and he's just always just crying and begging and pleading, being totally pathetic. But you know what I fear that they're doing. The more that people sort of get into this act, the more that they kind of like side worship the CIA and shit. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's more like, hey, don't worry about it. I'm not in charge. The good shepherd is.
How many of the freshman Congress people from the Democratic Party were involved with intelligence services? There's a lot.
Yeah.
Military and intelligence services.
The last 2 minutes of discussion was purely theoretical.
Yeah, welcome to the QAnon podcast.
Yeah, this is a fictional reenactment.
All right, so as usual, we didn't really accomplish anything there, but what can you expect? So let's move on to the most interesting member of the squad.
Yeah.
Ilhan Omar.
By far.
Yeah.
She definitely brings, I mean, this is a new thing in the political system. You get strange bedfellows right away. You got odd people supporting, odd people against. This is wild.
Well, 3 of the squad are pretty woke on Israel, but of the 3, you kind of get the impression that
they're not going to be trustworthy.
Yeah, certainly AOC's not. I'll be honest, I don't know enough about Rashida Tlaib to say, but about Ilhan Omar, I feel the opposite way. I think she walks the walk. The brand of identity politics that she practices, I think it's legitimate.
Of course. Well, politicians, they're not like people who just think about stuff and do what they're going to and do what they think about. They're like an attorney for clients. And it's very hard to be in Washington and not have Israel as one of your clients, because the Iranians don't play the game. They just decide they're not going to try to buy off American politicians and shit. They're just going to say fuck you. The Palestinians, what are they going to do? You know what I mean? There's not AIPAC for Palestine. Even if most people in DC, if they didn't really give a fuck about this IP stuff, the P side of this, they're just not playing the game. And I'm not saying that as they can't really,
There are
but
no incentives for them to do that, is what you're saying.
right. But it seems like Ilhan it seems like she could be trustworthy to be. I mean, this is I don't know. This is no fault of her own, but I mean, you can if you go listen to the Nazis and what we call Nazis, American discourse, people who blame the Jews for everything. They love her because this is the first person who's talking shit about Israel. Of course, they think that is the key to all politics, which is absurd. I just don't want. I think what most people want is some sanity in IP stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, it seems like an issue with the party where the Democratic Party, where the older members are much friendlier to the Israeli lobby than some of the younger members. But like the first person in the squad, Ayanna Presley, she doesn't say shit about Israel, and she's like, I think she's a little bit older than the rest of them. That's just good politics.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't even want to touch Israel versus Palestine, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fine.
I feel like that's a subject that other people can handle much better.
Here's the point: she's indispensable because she's the only person willing to criticize Israel in American politics.
Yeah, Pelosi came out and said a while back that like these are just like four people. They don't matter, and that seems like politically that's probably true. They are a fringe minority in the caucus. However,
as if politics was decided by. I mean,
yes.
Well, sorry.
Well, for Nancy Pelosi, like she's going to be out. She might actually be retiring this year. I'm not sure.
Sure.
What is important? How famous these four representatives are and why. And you say that her criticism of Israel is one of the reasons she's indispensable. I can see that. That is like a legitimate thing that you can say about her. That it's unalloyed good.
You can't get it anywhere else.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
However, some of her positions on say immigration, a little bit more cynical.
Yeah.
For example, she was saying she was against voting for the bill that would have funded DHS because you're giving that money to throw babies in jail. Pelosi said the only way we can have better conditions for those people is if we fund DHS. That's absolutely true, right? There's no arguing with Pelosi's logic there, correct? If you withhold funding, it will make things worse for the people who are being held at the border.
Of course. I mean, so what's it's not like
this whole issue's fabricated. If we wanted to fund ICE so that we could detain people who come across the border illegally in humane conditions and hold them to go to trial, we could do that, and we wouldn't have any of these photo ops. We wouldn't have these problems.
Yeah. Well.
Right.
Now we're getting, and so it's like, okay, so what's the alternative? And it's this open border stuff. Frankly, I don't even really want. I've gotten to the point I don't really want to engage with it because it's just totally fabricated position. It's not a real position. Whenever you get a hold of somebody and you get them and corner somebody and you go after them for 15 minutes, they're going to admit that okay, there's no country that's open board. It's just a fake thing, right? It's not. This is not coherent. What they are is they're anti open borders.
I think it's more of a trickle border than an open border. Like open borders is a nice catchphrase for it, but the policy that exists right now, it's not open borders. It's we're going to let people get across if you try hard enough. You're going to filter out a certain number of people, but ultimately they're happy with the status quo. They're happy with people coming in illegally, and they're happy to detain some of them because at this point the ruling class has to realize that they can't literally open the border.
Well, I mean, it's so you're fucked either way because okay, so first off, I mean, there is of course plenty of room to let people in, and there's different ways you could go about that. I mean, I'm a class war guy, so what I would like as many professional middle class people let in as possible.
Bringing all the doctors and the professors, right?
Hell yeah. But that'd be great. We'd love to see you. Come on aboard. So there's that. Now let's talk about just straight up open borders. So if you let in people and you hide them under sanctuary city stuff, so now you're competing against people working. If you're a worker, you don't want to be competing against people like this because they're going to be willing to work for less. They're just going to drive down your labor value. you would rather they be given citizenship.
Yeah,
You
it's
would
an
rather
incredibly precarious position for them to be in, and they're going to work under the table for less money than you can work for.
right. It's like working against H-1Bs. We're like, okay, I've got a pretty good work ethic. I should work on time. I do my work, but I definitely don't have in the back of my head I'm going to get sent back to Riyadh if I don't do a good job. It's hard to compete against that, and so it's going to put a lick on my labor value a little bit. What I'm telling you is I'd rather just give everyone citizenship who showed up. Just here you go. Here you're an American citizen right now. That would be better for labor value, class warfare shit. That's all I really care about. But now you get into an issue where if you're someone like Bernie Sanders who wants to do big programs for people, or even just Social Security, Medicare, which are fucking they're capped. You can't go tell people, oh, we're just going to take money from the rich people, because you can't. It's all capped.
Well, you can tell them that you're going to do that.
Yeah, that's what they do. They say, oh, we'll just go get the money from rich people, and you don't. Instead, you get someone working at McDonald's sending $300 of their paycheck into DC. What are you doing? How is this so, like, okay, yeah, it's going towards a program, but I don't need $300 off of someone's paycheck who's working at McDonald's. You keep that. You keep that. We can't just go ahead and keep that. That doesn't make me a libertarian. That means this game is fucking rigged.
Yeah, but
And
what socialism means in 2019, at least I'm going to say in America, so nobody yells at me, because in Belize there's an excellent socialist party or whatever. In America, that means you really like redistribution. You like those programs. You want more welfare. You want universal health care. It's got nothing to do with the means of production. Some people don't even have to do it with jobs. Just a UBI would be fine. Andrew Yang
Get that bag.
Could be a socialist. We don't need to get into that.
That's fine.
So on the subject of Omar, now we've established. So we know why the ruling class has this position on the border, because they want to import cheap labor.
Yeah, and there's not, you can't beat cheap labor. It's dude Carlos Earl Marx. Yeah, this is you're not going to be able to argue anyone out of cheap labor ever.
That's why the ruling class wants it. Why do supporters of, say, the Democratic Party want it?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you want to do immigration here, but I mean, they want services cheaper.
All right, fair enough. Why is she so popular with maybe not the base as a whole, but a certain part of the base? The Democratic Party just fucking loves Ilhan Omar.
I think what you're looking for is every now and then there's a kind of thing where if we were talking in a neutral environment and you said something like this, people would they'd lash out at you. But if you hang out with progressives and you have a couple drinks with them, they're gonna say stuff like, well, fuck this country.
Yep.
Well, if that policy didn't work out and it was bad for America, well, good. Maybe America deserves it for what you did with United Fruit or whatever.
You've been present in an argument that I had with somebody about immigration, and I was told that open borders would be reparations for what America has done to Central and South America.
Yeah, basically, you worked on them a while, and you said, well, this wouldn't be good for working class people in America, and it was like, well, you know what? Maybe they deserve it. This would be a little payback. And so there's that attitude that progressives get when they don't get this all day. They get this after, they're in a certain mood, sort of like right wingers when they get in a certain mood, they're like, maybe we should glass Iran.
Maybe you should just die of cancer if you get sick.
Yeah. So this is not how people feel every day in the morning, but every now and then she'll give people a little bit of that.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I was wondering to myself, especially when it comes to immigration, and I think you agree with me on this. This is the highlight issue for the foreseeable future, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
of course.
Okay, if we're just off the top of your head, we're talking about definitions of words. What is the opposite of nativism?
Alienism.
What is alienism?
You prefer the other to yourself. I guess it'd be like codependence almost.
How often have you heard someone say alienism?
Oh, yeah, I've never.
You've seen it like
Well, I
one
mean,
time from one source, right?
no, I've heard come up between us, but yeah, that's it.
From sane people, like people who are allowed to talk in public. You never hear.
Yeah, of course not. No.
What's the opposite of xenophobia?
Xenophilia.
How often do you hear someone say xenophilia outside the Star Wars expanded universe?
Yeah, the tug on Leia's chain there. No, it doesn't exist.
You could go down a list, like you could say chauvinism, whatever. The opposite of these things are either words that you never hear in public discourse, or they're good things. Like you could say, well, the opposite of that would be multiculturalism, which is good. The opposite, the opposite of the xenophobia would be compassion. There's no space in I hate saying the discourse again because it's like for you to
Your wrist gets like 5% limper every time you say that.
exactly. There's no room to say be xenophobic. Just saying the word xenophobia, it's a bad thing. It's like racism. It's just bigotry. It's evil. Nativism, it's a bad thing. How many articles did you see about the dangers of nativism since 2016?
Let me just bump in here. You know what? I mean, you know where this fucking comes from, right? It's because they don't see themselves. Our elites don't see themselves as part of the same group as everyone else. What they see, we're white trash. We're the help. And if you ask us to go pick you up some Taco Bell for $8 an hour, we're going to tell you to fuck off. And that's why they don't like us. That's why they'd like to get a little competition.
I agree, but
they'd like to expand their options.
Those people, like that group of people, is not large enough in electoral politics to control everybody else. They have to have help, and I think one of the ways that they get the help is, you had this bit that you used to do where you would say that a presidential candidate should advocate increasing immigration by 3%.
Yes, yeah, and
there can't be a limit. That's the joke. It would never happen. There can't be a limit.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, you can try this with people. Basically, if anyone ever wants to debate immigration with you, tell them, okay, what we need to do is double immigration. We need to double it. We need to find out, and we need to get accurate numbers on everyone coming in, and everyone who comes in, you're legal now. And whatever that number is right now, we want to double it or increase it by 50% or whatever. And this will never be accepted. You're still a Klansman for saying this, because you're talking like a rational ruler here or something like that. That's how you run a business or something. They're not talking about that. They're just sort of the embodiment of capital. And capital can know no limits. Capital can't stand limits. It must be theoretically unlimited. It just must be. You can't say it can only be this number. It must be unlimited, even if that's ridiculous.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're right about that. However, I still think that you need an explanation for people like me, average intelligence, hopefully.
What's this going to do for you?
You have to have an explanation for why we're doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that xenophobia, nativism, to some degree, sins in polite society now. And when I try to think about it in a vacuum, what is the inherent evil in nativism?
I don't know. I guess just being Hitler and just start wiping people out to make more space for make more Lebensraum.
Yeah, that's an extreme example, but yeah, okay.
But I mean, if I don't have a sister, but if I did, and you called her a whore, I'd punch you in the face. But if you said that to someone else, I might not. Is that bizarre?
Well, might be to some people, but I understand. What I'm driving at here is that on some level, I think that for this argument to work, like you said, there has to be a little bit of, I was going to say self-loathing, but you say we're not part of the in-group.
Yeah, well, so this
my argument was going to be they like the out-group, they hate the in-group, and we are a part of the in-group, but they hate it And this is a very old story. This isn't something that you can even attribute to capital. It's well, I love the civilizational cycle, and this is the later stage of the cycle. The people, you're fat and happy for so long that you lose the thing that made you who you were. People just stop caring about stewardship because nothing, pessimism and nihilism. Who cares? I don't deserve this stuff. This land actually belongs to, the Powhatan Confederation. We're sinners. The people who are losing their jobs, they deserve it. Whatever happens to me, it's fine. I deserve it. And of course, the problem is if you care about posterity, that's an untenable position to have, right?
Of course, you got to wonder what like the Chinese see when they see the West talking like that.
I want to know what people who have kids are thinking when they say stuff like this is land, the land rightfully belongs to other people. Everything we do is evil. We deserve the bad things that are going to happen to us. It's one thing to say it about yourself because I was raised Protestant, so I can understand that kind of self-abuse. But your
Sure.
kids,
I think you know the answer there. There's two answers there. First, so the first answer is they often don't have kids because if you want to be a professional in the West, it's tough to do that.
You've seen the demographics tab on the SoundCloud. You better be careful.
Yeah, my first cousin has 9 children, at least. He did.
Is he a partner at the law firm?
No, he mows grass. He didn't go to MIT. He may not went to the 12th grade.
Yeah, my best friend in high school, his son just got married last week.
Sorry.
Do the math on that. I don't need to say anymore, right?
Yeah, I've had a few cold ones. It took a second or two for that one to hit there. Yeah, of course. So that's number one, right? But that's not all. That's certainly not all. There's God knows if you check out the private school situation in America, which by the way, we should just fucking ban private school. Well, if you're listening to this, don't tell anybody you heard that here. We just fucking get rid of them all. Fuck them.
Ban private school and keep homeschooling.
Yeah. Or just turn them loose. Oh yeah, and number two is they see themselves as becoming like this superhuman. They just see themselves as it does things for the market that can never be replaced. And yeah, that's a fucking joke. I mean, if you see how many people, how much of the upper middle class are downwardly mobile right now, I mean, yeah, good fucking luck with that. Sorry. I mean, look at the richest people in America. I mean, the top 100. There's a lot on there that didn't inherit it. This is a frivolous system. Fortunes come and go at a moment's notice.
Yeah, this idea that the power of their towering intellect is going to insulate them from all these troubles. It's pretty deeply ingrained at this point. And, my boy said that the most dangerous byproduct of the age is the unconscious growth of the idea that the human brain can solve the problems of the world.
We touched on that in episode 1, didn't we?
I mean, this is belief versus
This is going to be a big recurring theme for us.
Behavior. Behavior is what counts. What goes on inside your brain. I mean, it's important, but this is part of the radical individualism has taken us part of the way here. And I don't know, you can attribute it to whatever cause you like. Maybe it's just part of the cycle. This is how people get after you have too many generations of full bellies and fat pockets. But if you can get lost inside yourself forever. It's a bottomless pit. You can just be up your own ass for all eternity.
Yeah, by the way, most of the worst shit of this, and Lennon identified it too. Most of the worst shit from this comes from psychoanalysis and shit, right? Freud and stuff. Because it seems like academic Marxism now is just sort of this forever project to integrate Marxism with psychoanalysis for whatever reason, and Lennon got one look at this and he was like, "Get it the fuck out of here! If you start talking about the id and the ego and shit or in my presence, you're gonna be swinging from a fucking rope." I love that, but the joke here is that one of the very first things that Freud figured out was that this shit does not work on yourself. You can never, it doesn't matter how many fucking books you can read, you can never apply this
Yeah,
to yourself because
you don't need me to tell you. Some of the dumbest shit that I've done to myself is just trying to, to intellectually explain, how you feel about things or what's happening to you. You can't do it.
it's totally you can't do it. You're an unreliable, but your brain is got you just got to get out of that business. You can't 1 foot ahead of the other and all this kind of stuff. We built this society that's sort of like based on
Right.
the reverse.
You were never supposed to decide who you are. That was never supposed to be an option. Yeah, there's a degree of that. You need to understand yourself to some extent, but you're not supposed to decide who you are. That is for your community to decide. Your place in society is determined by other people. And we have gone away from that, and it's fucking horrible. Now, how I link this back to Ilhan Omar is that if she's guilty of the things that she's being accused of by, like, I guess the right, that she's ungrateful for what the country did for her, etc. One of the things they say is she's looking out for the Somali community and not the nation. Then I would say
Sure.
Ilhan Omar came to America, and if this is true, and she's not just a cynical politician, which she probably is, but if she's doing that, then guess what? She's the one that's doing the right thing, and everybody else is wrong. And I say that as someone who strongly disagrees with most of her positions, probably.
Yeah. So you're saying maybe people need to see this.
Maybe you should look at what you say she's doing and ask yourself why you're not doing that. Kind of seems like Ilhan Omar knows who she is.
Yeah, part of a greater story, part of a larger whole. She might be remembered by her
Yeah.
children. This sort of thing.
And in the end, any friend of Saeed Bar is a friend of mine. So
Well, I mean, that's the flip side. If you want to get into the cynical stuff, which we'll just breathe on it here, is that, I mean, the other way you could look at it is just this is not just American. I mean, she's super American. This is the part of American foreign policy and the State Department that everyone knows how much America fucks up the rest of the world, right? Somalia, especially. We got Black Hawk Down and stuff. That was Somalia,
yes,
right?
we've never really left Somalia either.
Of course, but this is this is how we do. We send soldiers all around the world to fuck everything up, and at the same time we have teams of lawyers standing on the sidelines, waiting to put them in jail for shooting the wrong combatant and stuff like that, which is totally absurd when you're just fucking up the whole world. That kind of duality where it would be better if we were just cruel to our enemies. Instead, we play these games where we're
permanently maintaining the conditions that we'll have to be the world police forever.
Yeah, we need to blow up your country because we love you so much.
Well, the cynical answer here is how much money did Halliburton make for every fire base that was built in Afghanistan?
Yeah, I missed my royalty cut from that, by the way.
So we're agreed that it's the worst of both worlds. We're not not the velvet glove and it's not the iron fist. It's something in between that doesn't satisfy either.
Well, didn't dude from Galilee like a couple thousand years ago say something about this? Said don't be hot or cold, man. Don't play me down the middle. Don't be lukewarm, the word they use. Yeah, it's the worst. That's our little mini rant on what this might be in a material concerns. But if you really want to learn about that, you're in the wrong fucking podcast.
And before we go, I understand people had some strong opinions about some of the nonsense we said in the first episode. You want to address that in a little postscript?
It's funny. We said all kinds of fucked up stuff in episode 1, but the one thing that people were pissed off about was that we gave too much to Lindy, and I would agree. Lindy did not invent.
No, it's just a catchphrase.
Like yeah, and the really important thing is Lindy is not a positive concept where it shouldn't be. I mean, I like to leave half the time, but you shouldn't think of ways to be more Lindy. What Lindy exists is a refutation of things that are non-Lindy. Basically, it's a way of talking to people who are overeducated and saying, "Here's why things might not work out the way you've planned it." That's sort of why it exists. It's a way of saying what you're doing might not work out. I don't think you should base your life around it or something like that. I'm about to take another sip from my monster, which is certainly not been in this world
Yeah,
for
keep it
500 years.
simple is essentially what Lindy is. This doesn't seem very controversial to me, but people really don't like the Lindy guy, so maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah, well, he runs around calling everybody the fucking worst names in the book.
Was there anything else? Is that it?
That's it.
All right, well, as always, we do not want your feedback. You're foolish to listen to this entire thing. We're glad you did, though.